So we're in the middle of lockdown, and well, we still got to think ahead. Hopefully there'll be some normality sometime this summer.
Hopefully.
And so we need to take some road trips. So this upcoming episode is a nice place to visit. Mm-hmm. It really is. And it's got something for everyone. All right.
Very much.
Welcome to Unearthly Upstate. This is Mari.
And I'm Matthew.
And today we're going to talk about, well, if he's not, one of the most famous water cryptids. Mm-hmm. Definitely one of the more famous American, or I should say North American water cryptids. Mm-hmm. Champ from Lake Champlain. You know, Loch Ness, Scotland can claim Loch Ness. But Champ can be claimed by both the United States and Canada. Mm-hmm. Because Lake Champlain goes into Canada.
Yeah, Lake Champlain, it borders Canada, New York, and New Hampshire.
Vermont.
Vermont.
Vermont, yes.
Okay.
So
Vermont, New York, and Canada.
Yes.
Okay.
They all can claim ownership to the lake, and which means, by proxy, they all can claim ownership to Champ.
Yeah.
So whenever I do these water cryptids, I have to compare them to the most famous one,
mm-hmm.
Nessie.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to give you some comparisons here. Now, again, after you start researching these and you start comparing things, you realize, why is Loch Ness such a big deal? As we talked about in the episode a long time ago with the Seneca sea serpent and the Cayuga lake monster, the smallest of those lakes, and those two are pretty close in size, is bigger than Loch Ness.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Lake Champlain, which puts Loch Ness to shame. If you call it surface, it's huge.
Exactly.
Compare, it's not as big as the Great Lakes, obviously. So people, I think it's more plausible, we'll go into this more, if there is a creature that got caught in Champlain and that's who we're seeing, it's more plausible in Champlain than it is Loch Ness.
And not just a deadfall that's rolling around in the waves.
That's another theory. But okay, so let me do here's some comparisons for you. And I already did the apples to orange thing, so everything's in English, American units, I guess. It's not metric. All right. So Lake Champlain, which, like we mentioned before, is surrounded by New York, Vermont, and Quebec. So it's just the Quebec province. Its max length is 107 miles. Compare that to Loch Ness, which is 22.5 miles. So already it's 5 times as long. All right. Max width, it's 14 miles wide. Max width of Loch Ness is 1.7 miles. Okay, that's a big difference there. That's,
Yeah, there is. Yeah, comparatively.
Yeah. Surface area, Lake Champlain is 514 square miles, whereas Loch Ness is 21.8 square miles.
Oh, boy.
Average depth of Lake Champlain, 64 feet. Average depth, now this is where Loch Ness beats us. Average depth of Loch Ness is 433 feet. So if it's something go deep, okay, Loch Ness beats us there.
Right. Well, it is a deeper lake. Okay. That's true.
But the average depth makes Champlain sound like it's a very shallow lake. It's not. The max depth is 400 feet. Loch Ness, the max depth is 744.6 feet. The water volume in Champlain is 6.2 cubic miles. Water volume in Loch Ness is 1.8 cubic miles. Surface elevations, again, Lake Champlain's a little higher. It goes from 95 to 100 feet. And the surface elevation of Loch Ness is 52 feet. So there's a few similarities, except for the depth. Lake Champlain really kicks Loch Ness's butt. So you did a little research on the history of Lake Champlain. Yeah. Why don't you go into that? So your history.
According to current study, prehistoric tribal occupation in the region is pinned around 11,300 standard years ago. Okay, first contact being made somewhere around the early 1600s. We're starting off with Paleo-Indian period. Mm-hmm. All right, that's the first period that starts off, and then the Archaic period, and then the Woodland period. Okay, and then that's how long people have been there around Lake Champlain,
So-
ever since 11,300 years ago.
So it's been a very populated lake. It's always been used. And we will go into, there are some sightings that are pretty old. And after the colonists came,
Well, yeah, there was the French and Indian War,
Yep.
the War for Independence, and the War of 1812. And that's basically the extent of the conflicts that happened in and around Lake Champlain. But there was lots to do because every side had an interest in maintaining the region,
right?
So that they could move troops and goods, around the area to, for basically to give sustenance to their basic, sometimes literally, their endeavors there. In and around Lake Champlain. It doesn't stop there. After the War for Independence and the War for 1812, in October of 1820, the steamboat crews of Congress and Phoenix smuggled contraband American goods into Canada in violation of Canadian revenue laws.
Yep.
And
I bet it's still going
things like
on
that.
to some extent. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's still going on. I'm not sure.
That episode of Trailer Park Boys where they put the train through the tube.
Yeah.
Underneath the river.
There's a famous, this wasn't Lake Champlain, this was Lake Ontario where they were doing this, but there is a famous serial killer in Canada. His name escapes me right now, but one of the ways he made money was smuggling cigarettes from America, and
oh my goodness,
he would actually walk across the bridge at Niagara Falls, and that's how he smuggled them in.
Cigarettes are better than cash.
So I can't remember his name, but if anyone wants to look it up, look up the Ken and Barbie killers. And I'm going to say right here, we're not going to talk about this. One, it happened in Canada, and two, I'm not going down that horrible rabbit hole. You are forewarned. Okay, I've been down that. I have been down that rabbit hole. It's not pleasant. So we're going to go back to talk about Champ. All right. So who is Champ? How would you describe if we were trying to describe Champ to somebody? Now,
let's first of all, let's talk about how the lake was made.
Okay.
And it was all of the Great Lakes were carved out of the glaciers.
And I do have to apologize. I need my phone on because
well,
I'm expecting something.
Both need our phones on, kind of. Lake Champlain is the result of post-glacial rebound. Now, post-glacial rebound is the rise of land masses after the removal of the huge weight of the ice sheets during the last glacial period, which would cause isostatic depression.
So there, that's going to blow one theory out of the water. Yep. There is the popular theory that it's a dinosaur, that Champ is a dinosaur.
Which is why I brought it up for the first place.
And right there, he cannot be a dinosaur. Champ
Absolutely not.
Cannot be a dinosaur because the lake didn't exist.
That would make Champ a temporal anomaly as well.
Oh, they were going into a whole different can of worms.
Then we're going into a heller space kind of thing, so to speak.
Thank you, Kryptonauts, for coming up with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you're talking about cryptids crossing over dimensions, and winding up inside your walls and speaking to you, that kind of stuff. But Champ's not like that.
No.
That would be a geological impossibility.
Right. So
for Champ to be anything other than.
So anyone who says, "Oh, it's a dinosaur," they are ignoring how the lake was made.
Yep.
It is a glacier lake. Well, what's the exact term? Post-glacier rebound. So this. Okay. Ancient history. A long time ago in college, geology mainly. So you had the dinosaur period. They start wearing off. Here comes the ice ages. This is when the glaciers come down. When the glaciers receded, there's Lake Champlain. Where we used to live in Wisconsin. A lot of evidence of that. I mean, the Blue Hills of Wisconsin used to be mountains.
Yep.
Until the glaciers came through.
Got ground down.
There is a lot of evidence in
but
the
there's
north.
still hills, some high hills left
gosh.
in the northern Midwest, which is where we're from.
Yeah. And I'm beating a dead horse here, but don't throw the dinosaur theory out. They can't keep the dinosaur theory. Okay.
No. Not a plesiosaur. Sorry.
Now, you could argue it's one of those large mammals. Because those did exist for quite a long time in the North American continent. So if somebody could say, well, what if it's this large aquatic mammal? I'd be more inclined to believe that, because then that would make more sense.
The development of Lake Champlain and the presence of megafauna go a little bit closer together.
Yeah, it's a little more
it's
acceptable.
A little bit more, yes.
If you're going to go that route, it's a little more acceptable. All right, so...
Imagine a time on Earth when there was enough oxygen in the atmosphere to create these huge arachnids.
Oh, God, we're not going to discuss those. Anyway.
But that was
so
a long time ago.
We did mention that this lake has been populated by people for a very long time. People have utilized the lake, fished, used it for moving back and forth. As anyone can tell you, it's quite the waterway. So the Native Americans that lived around there, the Abenaki, hope I pronounced that tribe right, and the Iroquois had legends about a creature that lived in the lake. And then the first European that people credit with seeing is Samuel de Champlain, who the lake is named after. A lot of people say he saw Champ the first. He was the first European to see it. But let me read what he noted. He said, "There is also a great abundance of many species of fish. Amongst others, there is one called by the natives charosro. Amongst others, there is one called by the natives charosu. I'm going to go with that. Which of various lengths, but the largest of them, as these tribes have told me, are from 8 to 10 feet long, and I have seen some 5 feet long, which were as big as my thigh, and had a head as large as my 2 fists, with a snout 2.5 feet long, a double row of very sharp, dangerous teeth. Its body has a good deal the shape of a pike, but it is projected by scales of a silvery gray color, and so strong a dagger cannot pierce them." And this comes from the Volume 2, Chapter 9 of Champlain's Journal. When we go to the State Fair, which probably is not happening this year, there is the aquatic exhibit that the conservation... it's
I know what you're talking about.
You know what? Okay, I'm trying... Yeah. It's near the wine... the wine garden.
That's why I remember it.
Yeah. But you go through there and they have all the fish that are native to New York in there. And one of them is not as big as he describes, but it does describe how the jaws look, how the teeth look, the color of it. And it's called a garfish. And believe me, the description Champlain gives, that's a garfish. I mean, he does a very good job of describing it. Those things are definitely prehistoric looking. They are funky looking. Yeah. And they have smaller ones. They have 3 to, I think the 3-footer is the biggest I've seen in their tanks. But those are some very interesting looking fish. So that's what he actually saw. He did not see Champ. Yeah. So a lot of people say, oh, Champlain saw the first. No, he saw a garfish. Okay.
Right.
We have to go to 1819, Champ sighting. And this was reported in the Plattsburgh Republican on Saturday, 24th, 1819. Captain Crum, I love that name, by the way.
Yeah.
He was on his scow at Baguada Bay. I think that's on...
Sounds New York.
Yeah. When he reported a monster about 187 feet long with a head resembling a seahorse that reared more than 15 feet out of the water. Now, he said he saw 3 teeth, eyes the color of a peeled onion, a white star on its forehead, and a belt of red around its neck. First thing that comes in mind is there's an anime movie, or anime style movie, it might have been a Rankin and Bass, in which they're fighting this dragon, and that's kind of what the dragon looked like. It was this long, slender thing, the eyes and this weird thing around his neck. I can picture the image in my head. I cannot think what the movie is. Oh, okay. I just remember it kind of swaying back and forth.
Well, it wasn't Flight of Dragons, was it?
Oh my God, I think it was Flight of Dragons. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it was kind of anime, kind of Rankin Bass style of animation.
Yeah, it had John Ritter and
I forgot
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones did the he did the voice of the dragon. Yeah, and that's
he did the voice of the dragon and of the antagonist.
Yeah, and that's
the antagonist wizard.
That's the image I have, and that's kind of when I read this, I'm like, that's what popped in my head. By the way, go ahead and look up that movie. It's a great movie. Matt's got the book that movie's based on, and really, if you're into cryptids, it's a great book because it explains scientifically how dragons could exist. It's great. There's the bumblebee theory, which is awesome.
It's got some lovely artwork in it as well. So that alone is worth a look.
The bumblebee hypothesis is my favorite part. Where he,
bumblebee hypothesis. Well, they're an they're aerodynamic absurdity.
Exactly. They should not be able
to fly, but by golly, they don't care. They don't listen.
Yeah, they don't listen to physics.
Laws of physics, this.
Okay, so then we have in 1873, there was your first big spat of sightings. And then a railroad crew had seen an enormous serpent in Lake Champlain. Then a sheriff reported an enormous snake or water serpent, about 25 to 35 feet long. And a steamship called the W.B. Eddy encountered Champ by running into it. Ooh. Didn't that happen in Seneca, supposedly, as well?
Oh, yes, I remember that story about hitting the serpent and deliberately ramming it.
Yeah.
And how I went on about I went on this jag about how that captain would have got hung by both his toes.
Right.
By whatever naval board.
Go back to that episode.
For putting his ship and his crew and his passengers at risk just to ram this thing.
Go back to that episode if you have a chance, because I found the original article and it has nothing to do with this steamship running into it, and it's hilarious. It really is. About the Seneca Lake monster. But exactly, I read that, I was like, wow, was that how steamship captains treated these huge anomalies? Just run them in, you know. Okay.
Full speed ahead. Damn the torpedoes.
So now we've got all this, people are seeing Champ left and right. Of course, P.T. Barnum, he wants it, so he starts offering a reward of $50,000 for it.
That guy keeps cropping up.
I know.
He cropped up in the last couple episodes, too. That P.T. Barnum, by golly, he's the hardest working flim-flam in the business.
Yeah. So then it calms down. We don't see Champ for a while. At the end of World War II, the passengers of the SS Ticonderoga, and I can never pronounce that properly.
Ticonderoga?
Yes. Claimed to also have seen him. And then it calms down again. All right. But in the 1990s, now people are starting to see him again. And I think Unsolved Mysteries did a thing about Champ. I think there were other shows that came out and did a thing about Champ in the 90s as well. So
I even remember a television segment from programs like Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah.
When they would have their specials. And
in fact, I remember reading about cryptids and that.
Oh, it was hosted by Jack Palance.
Oh, yeah.
And that one during the late 70s, early 80s or something like that.
That was Ripley's, wasn't it?
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yeah, because he had a co-host.
Yeah. His wife.
Yeah. So, it was, but I remember I just got into reading about Loch Ness, and I think I had read some book about it from the library of just Loch Ness.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was Holly Palance.
Okay, Holly Palance.
All right.
So anyway, I'm reading this book about Loch Ness, and I think one of those shows came up. It might have been Ripley's, might have been That Is Incredible. I don't know which one it was. Yeah. And they talked about Champ, and I was so excited because America's got a sea serpent. America's got a sea creature. And then, you start researching and realize we are packed to the brim with them. If you've got a lake that's big enough, you've got a lake monster in it. And even I think the Mississippi, there's rumors that there's some sort of river monster. I know the urban legend of the giant catfish, okay, but
as any pet specialist down at the local pet store worth their salt will tell you, is that the fish will grow along with the size of its environment.
Yeah, that's where that story of the catfish with the eye with the size of a dinner plate comes from. I heard that from somebody in Florida who swore it up and down it was true, and then I heard also somebody that lived along the Mississippi, in the southern part of the Mississippi where it's huge, that was true, but no, there's never been a catfish that large. Okay.
Some species just can't physically get that large. They won't. Right. No matter how large their environment.
But we did discuss in the Seneca one possible fish. And some of them get quite huge. So so there are contenders for Champ that
definitely
are real fish. Okay, so it starts starts picking up 80s and 90s, really starts picking up, and then we hit the 2000s, and now you got the internet blowing up with Champ. There was a special on Discovery Channel in 2003, America's Loch Ness. I know Small Town Monsters have talked about Champ.
Yes.
Last year there was a lady claimed to have found proof of Champ, and it was it's not radar, sonar image. I couldn't make heads or tails of it.
Really? Well, okay. I think I know the one you're talking
about. Yeah, but she claimed to find the proof that Champ exists.
Didn't some outfit point a LiDAR at the lake and trying to scan using the LiDAR? That's they've done a laser with radar added,
yeah.
and it gives them a better image, and you can scan actually through the soil with a LiDAR to find whatever it is you're looking for, and they tried to do the same thing with the lake.
Here's the thing: there is a famous photo of Champ, but it doesn't have the pedigree behind it. Not pedigree is the wrong term.
Well, I know. It's close.
It doesn't have. I think
the
if I was to hold up both pictures, you'd recognize the Loch Ness one before you recognize the Champ one.
Right.
Okay. I guess I can't think of the word.
I guess name recognition.
Name recognition. So there is a famous picture of Champ, which has been debunked by some people, but I have trouble with some of the debunking. I don't think it is Champ in my opinion, but I have my own theory what it is. So, but Champ is pretty big. I mean, a lot of people have seen Champ or a Champ. There might be more than one. So
we might be talking about more than one, just one fish. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So there has been some laws passed to protect Champ. In 1981, Port Henry, New York, declared their waters around their town a safe haven for Champ, so you cannot harm Champ at Port Henry.
Right.
The state of Vermont has protected Champ on its...
The whole state of Vermont.
The whole state of Vermont. So if you go hunting for Champ to capture him, do not do it in Vermont. You're going to get in trouble, okay?
Do it somewhere in New York.
And that was in 1983, New York also passed the same.
Oh, well, there you go.
So basically, if you're going to go hunt Champ and hurt him, go to Canada.
Tolerant Canada.
So that kind of gives you a quick overview of what Champ is. Now, the thing about Champ, I said there's that famous photo. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yes. It's called the Manstey photo. Sandra Manstey took the photograph while she was on vacation. This was in 1977. People have figured out where it was taken, because if you see the full photo, you do get a good idea of the shoreline where the photo was taken. And it was no deeper than 14 feet deep where supposedly this was taken. So it was in the shallower part of the lake. Okay. And if any of you haven't seen it, there is a dark shape in the water, and like an arm or a tentacle is kind of coming out over it.
Right.
A lot of people have speculated it was a tree, and that was a tree root that forms kind of that tentacle look. I kind of accept that because that does happen a lot.
That goes back to what I said at the beginning of the program about deadfalls rolling around, in the waves, and this gives it the optical illusion of a serpent moving through the water.
But I've never seen a high enough resolution of the photo. Yeah. It's a blob.
You never do.
It's just a blob. So I've always looked upon it and said it could be somebody doing a side stroke, and their arm's coming up, and you got just enough motion blur.
Yeah, because I've got it in my mind now, the photograph that you're talking about.
Right.
And I've seen it before, and it might be somebody doing a in the
side
water,
stroke,
doing a forward side stroke. Yeah.
Definitely. Now she never claimed it was a huge creature. I mean, she never said it was like 150 feet long. She said it was a large creature that they saw. Mm-hmm. Okay, so acceptable that it could have been a tree log. Yes, I do accept that. But to me, it always looked like somebody doing a side stroke. That's just me. All right.
Good. But how far out into the water did she take the photograph?
Can you ask me that question again? Now my phone's stopped ringing.
How far out into the water was the photograph taken?
I really don't have that on me. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. But it was a shallower part. It's like, it was
like you said,
it was 14 feet deep.
Oh, so it could possibly have been an experienced swimmer.
Yeah, exactly.
In 14 feet of water. That's plausible.
That's possible. There have been, videos of the Champ. There was one taken in 2005 by a fisherman. And, here we go with the dinosaur. Immediately people are like, it's a dinosaur. It's the plesiosaur. Okay. But... it's
a geological impossibility.
But that's a geological impossibility. And I do have to mention again, harbor seals have made it up as far as Albany. And Albany is not that far from Champlain.
Oh, Oh, yeah, that's right. I
going
saw the
to
photographs of some of the seals who wash up in Albany. And they wind up at the docks.
Yeah, and they just sit there and have a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm bringing up Google Maps so we can get this right. Okay, so I'm
Absolutely.
gonna scroll over. So in case people are wondering, well, what do you mean they could get to Champlain from Albany?
Wasn't it one of the major waterways has got to be,
Well, okay.
Which is one of the reasons why it became so significant.
Right.
For thousands of years.
Okay, no, I'm still not out of the Adirondacks. I'm still
11,300 years.
Getting there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we just had a look.
Yeah, I had to get Google Maps to cooperate with me. So if you go to Albany, there's the Hudson River. You follow the Hudson River, and you keep going up, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling while I'm doing this, so make sure I get it right. And then you get to Fort Edward. Now, I'm not sure if this is a natural waterway, if this is the canal. It's pretty straight here.
It looks pretty well chiseled there. I think it's... it's definitely a canal.
Okay.
That's not... Yeah, that's not at all natural.
But you can follow this up. Oh, I don't know. This looks pretty natural. Maybe they...
Well, it may have started out that way, but...
And I don't have a name...
I haven't really fully researched all the canals in New York.
I don't have a name of this waterway here, so... Oh, here it is. Oh, it is a canal. That's the Champlain Canal.
Champlain Canal. Oh, there you are.
And as we know from Erie Canal, they would sometimes follow natural waterways. But you follow that all the way up, and guess where it ends up? Dun, 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 Lake Champlain. And there's also another waterway down here that would be hard to portage. And again, we're discussing, if you go back to our Erie Canal and a few of our other ones, these waterways were connected, and where they weren't connected, there was places to portage your boats. So coming up from the south, especially now they've made the canal, you could see a seal making its way up the canal, and maybe all the way up to Lake Champlain. I mean, if it's a couple seals together and they're out there swimming, it might look like a bunch of it might look like humps. So that's a possibility. The other one, I'm back in Google Maps out again here, is when you head north. Oh, that doesn't work. There is a river that connects the St. Lawrence Seaway to Lake Champlain as well. And if you know your shipping, the St. Lawrence Seaway is one way that ships bring in cargo into the Midwest of the United States. It hits the Great Lakes, and they take the Great Lakes through. There you go. It's connected both ways to other major water sources. Could it be an animal that came from somewhere else and got caught in there?
Yeah,
very plausible. Yeah. Very plausible. Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of water going around everywhere.
Yep.
To bring something in from either the ocean that could then live in fresh water. I mean, there are forms of life like that.
Now, my question is should we really care if Champ is real or not? Because he's already protected in many of these waters. Or she, or it, or them. I mean, is it really a bad thing to disprove Champ? Do you think it would be a bad thing to say Champ does not exist at all?
There's got to be something there in order to disprove it. The only way you could do it would be if somebody had caught Champ, and then you debunk it by saying, well, okay, what you got there isn't a sea monster or whatever. It's not Champ, it's this other thing. It's an overgrown coelacanth or something like that. Whatever. If coelacanths can survive in fresh water, I'm not too sure, but I haven't done that much research on it.
I don't think they can.
And I think
it's
that's
not deep enough.
Exactly. And the wrong temperature, too. Everybody's talking about salinity of the water, whether it's fresh water or salt water. Nobody pays attention to the depth, temperature, things like that. And whether or not there's anything for it to eat in there. That's the thing. Champ doesn't seem to be a very invasive species.
No.
And that doesn't harass the fishermen. And
I mean, you can explain away by saying it's those waves, those long waves that appear that kind of make people think they're seeing a creature.
Yeah, exactly.
The log theory and that. There is a lot of theories that you can say, so it doesn't exist. But I'm thinking, really, should we really totally disprove Champ? Because I do want to go to Vermont, and there's a few Champ statues I want to go visit. And, it is a good way to get people interested in the area. Now, I always talked about ghosts selling T-shirts.
Exactly. And that's what you're going to do when you got your B&B or you've got a community with a skunk ape or something like that. You need that that monster story or that
Mm-hmm.
ghost story to bring in the
Right.
anybody who's going to
So
come and do any sort of recreation
mm-hmm.
around your region. Yeah,
Oh, and what a fish
communities who have this kind of thing going for them should embrace it, sort of.
Yeah.
And a lot of the area around Lake Champlain, it strikes me, has embraced Champ,
Yes.
of course, to the point where at the state level,
Champ is protected. Yeah.
protect something that might very well be in just our imaginations.
Mm-hmm.
And why not? Why do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why go out of your way to try and disprove Champ exists? Because everybody's getting such a big kick out of it,
Yeah.
and it's bringing tourism to those regions.
Right. I mean,
And many of those communities have nothing else.
they've got the recreation of being on Lake Champlain, but
Oh,
that's
of course,
just
of course.
but Champ's just another
But I'm
draw.
talking about other locations as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a.
Mhm.
I think a good point to make is this lake. There are a lot of sightings of Champ, and that's because this lake is so important. I mean, Fort Ticonderoga. I said it right.
There you-
And Crown Point are on the lake, and
Yeah.
those were some major scuffles. I know it's
for sure.
in the
Yeah.
Revolutionary War. There's the birthplace of the United States Navy is Whitehall, New York. That's not on the ocean.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it really is an important lake historical wise, but a lot of people aren't like me. They're not historical buffs, and they could really, give two flying whatevers about the Revolutionary Wars battles that were there and the sunken ships that happened due to the battles and that. But
No,
boy,
they're still finding wrecks.
you mentioned a lake monster, they're all ears.
Oh,
They're either all ears because they want to see it, or they're all ears because they think you're a moron. So
And while you're here,
Yeah.
why don't you, after you're done browsing our gift shop, please check out these other locations and maybe, visit the fort and
yeah,
maybe go on a sunken ship tour
yeah,
where
yeah.
where the wrecks are down in areas that are shallow enough where you can see them and on a clear day,
Yeah.
and that fresh water is crystal clear and you can see all the way to the bottom. It's kind of eerie. And then you see something that's supposed to that belongs on top of the water underneath it, and you can take tours around and look at these old wrecks, and the people who are conducting the tour will give you a history behind each wreck, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's incredible.
And the other thing is there's a lot. I'm glad they protected Champ because it also means they're protecting a lot of the other species that are in that lake as well. So, yeah, protecting Champ, whether you believe in him or not, I think leads to a lot of positive things.
Yeah.
And that's one thing is they are also protecting the other wildlife in those lakes as well by protecting Champ.
I think that's a good way to go around it.
Yeah.
Go around,
So, what would be your
Go about doing it.
theories about if Champ is a living creature? What could Champ be?
Well, it had to have been something that came in through the waterways after the formation of the lake.
Yeah.
You've got to start there. You've got to start 11,000 years ago.
Well, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and say it's a sturgeon.
A sturgeon, yeah.
They get huge. They kind of match the description, except for the one from Champlain, which was a gar. Well, gar is a type of sturgeon.
It is a type of sturgeon.
Gar is a type of sturgeon, yes, not a surgeon.
Although I've had a few doctors who were wet fish.
Yeah. It'd be very plausible that it would be a sturgeon. I don't know if we get some eels. I don't know how big the eels get up there.
Yeah, that's
There's
right.
some eels that get pretty big. And if you weren't quite sure of your distance, I'm sure your mind would make it bigger than it was if you saw it. So there are good possibilities in just the fish world
And
of
then-
what it might be.
Then there's always the exotic pet gone rogue.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I could definitely see somebody bringing an alligator up here and letting it go, and of course it wouldn't survive
One that
the
can
winter.
survive the winters. Nor the kind of water that's there.
Yeah.
That goes back to food and
Yeah.
temperature and other environmental factors.
I mean, there was something I stumbled upon more up in the Adirondacks, but they were talking about the giant beavers that live up there.
Oh yeah. Well, there were hogzillas.
Hogzillas,
So
or
why
those
not mega beavers?
Mega beavers. But, I'll tell you right now, the mega beavers do not exist.
Oh come on! They're out there frolicking with the jackalopes.
There's a lot about Champ. I don't think we could do it justice with one little quick episode, but it's a cute little cryptid. Yeah, he's a good cryptid to mention, or she, or it, or them, and
could be a family of cryptids out there, and you're just seeing one.
I for one hope Champ does exist, but even if Champ doesn't, so many people are, they want him there, or they they want Champ around. And I think it's wonderful. And it's a nice shared history of the area.
Mm-hmm. He's an international cryptid.
Yes, really he's an international cryptid. So, let's not be mean. Let's not be vicious.
Let's be nice to Champ.
Yeah, let's be nice to Champ. I mean, some of the proof comes out as pretty hokey. Some of it is compelling.
Well, he certainly hasn't been intrusive.
He
hasn't been taking the bait off your hook and, menacing the other fish.
And I don't hear stories like I hear sometimes of Loch Ness where he might rear and attack someone. I mean, I've never heard that about Champ. So for the most part, he keeps to himself, or herself, or themselves.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody getting savaged by Champ.
Yep.
Or otherwise, nailed on.
Yeah. So
leave alone.
We could probably delve more into Lake Champlain later. We probably will. There's a lot of rich history there. I'm sure there's some ghost stories of the ships that have gone down and that. So, we'll keep those in mind for a later time. But this was your Cliff Note version of Champ.
All right. Thank you for listening to our Ghastly podcast.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Unearthly Upstate. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and our webpage. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. Please like, share, and review on your favorite platform. Unearthly Upstate is an Animator Liar production. The show is produced by Mari and Matt Manette, with purring provided by Honey and Lloyd. Research and writing by Mari Manette. Music is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Unless otherwise stated in the episode, the places mentioned in the broadcast are not paid or contact us for any type of promotion. Please check out our webpage for credit and sources for the episode. Thank you.